Where do you go after the success of Sonic Colors? Well, 2011 saw the 20th anniversary of the Blue Blur, and I can't believe as of writing this review, Sonic is over 30 years old now. Where does the time fly? Anyway, the next game was codenamed Sonic Anniversary, and it was leaked in August 2009 when Sega themselves accidentally put out a press release containing information about the game. You know, accidentally. That's just something you do accidentally, apparently. It had been in development since the completion of Sonic Unleashed in 2008, and at the same time as Sonic Colors. I assume Sonic Team split into divisions to spread out the workload, which might explain why Sonic Colors was so short. I imagine the majority of Sonic Team being heavily focused on its next installment on more powerful hardware. This game is now a staple of the Sonic franchise, being held up to the same standard as Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, which in my opinion it easily surpasses and is as iconic for the fans as the classic titles. It puts to shame anything else that came out last decade, as the standard is so high and it makes you wonder where things went wrong. The game I'm talking about is obviously Sonic Generations. Released in November 2011 in the West and December 2011 in Japan, the game received positive reception from fans and critics, and became instantly loved through its incorporation of 2D and 3D elements that put Sonic 4 Episode 1 and Sonic Colors to shame. This time, Hiroshi Miyamoto took the reins as the director. For clarification, we've had 3 different games in the span of a year with 3 different directors, each with their own idea of how Sonic should play. This is the only first and only time Miyamoto has taken the reins as the director of a core Sonic game, as usually he is a game designer. His previous work includes the first 2 Sonic Riders games, the Mario and Sonic series, and Sonic 06. It could be said that giving Miyamoto the reins to direct Generations was a gamble, but luckily for Sega it paid off. I'm surprised he hasn't been in more directorial positions, but maybe he prefers taking a lesser role. Familiar faces Takashi Iizuka and Jun Sonoe reprised their roles as producer and composer respectively, with the writing team being the new duo introduced in Sonic Colors, Ken Pontac and Warren Graff. When the game boots up, you're greeted with a lovely white background, with Sonic and himself replicating the iconic title screens of the classic games. If you know nothing about Sonic Generations, you might be confused as to why there is 2 Sonics. You see, the thing that makes this game great, and the major selling point, is that you can play as classic Sonic and modern Sonic. Classic stages are entirely 2D, being reminiscent of the Genesis titles, while modern Sonic stages comprise of both 2D and 3D, with a heavier focus on high-speed platforming. It would have been a lot cooler for classic Sonic's return if they didn't release Sonic 4 Episode 1 a whole year before this. You know, a game solely comprising of 2D platforming. But whatever. Classic Sonic was still a big deal when he was revealed, and had fans going crazy at the potential this gave to series. The title screen is rather lacking when compared to previous entries, and doesn't really get you pumped up to play the game. Rather, it just makes you wonder why it's so plain. That feeling is quickly dropped upon pressing start, as you're thrown directly into the game with no explanation, finding yourself standing in the iconic Green Hill Zone. Once again, this would have been more surprising if Sonic 4 didn't try to do this exact same thing a year before. That's not the fault of Sonic Generations though, but rather the mismanagement of different projects throughout the company. After completing the first stage, we are greeted with the first cutscene, as we are teased with a mysterious enemy attacking classic Green Hill before it gatecrashes modern Sonic's birthday party. After attacking our hero, Sonic finds himself waking up in a white void-like universe, which he traverses to save his friends and to find out what is going on. It's here that he unites with his classic self, as well as his fellow companions. The introduction cutscene is the only major plot point that you are given, as after this the story takes a huge backseat. There are more cutscenes of course, as we see classic and modern Sonic unite while they make their way through the game stages, but it's not until about 5 hours later at the very end of the game that we are given any more plot progression. Whether you play Sonic games for the story or not, you can't really deny that Generations' story feels lazy. It's not like there's a healthy amount of cutscenes here to distract from the glaring absence of the plot, because there's not. I counted roughly 11 cutscenes, not including the post-credit scene, which is an astonishingly low amount. Some scenes are 30 seconds long, while the rest average out to about a minute, with the longest two cutscenes being the very first cutscene you are shown and the cutscene before the final boss. For an anniversary title, it feels like a letdown. Say what you want about both Adventure 2 and Sonic 06's story, but they tried to be grandiose, epic adventures, taking advantage of a significant event, that being Sonic's anniversary. For some reason though, in Generations' case, the story feels very rushed and unfinished. For the writing process, I imagine Pontank and Graf were given a brief by Sega to work around, so if Sega tells them to make a simple story, that's exactly what the pair are going to do. But there is a difference between simple and extremely bare bones, which is the case for Generations. The biggest blunder of the story is shown upon completing Green Hill and Chemical Plant Zone, in which Sonic and Tails reminisce and discuss the stage. Why don't all the stages have something like this? It feels like a missed opportunity to poke fun at Sonic's history and to poke fun at parts of the series' history that weren't as good as the rest. Fortunately, while the story may be lacking, the rest of the game makes up for it. It's one of the most fun Sonic games you can play. It is such a high quality platformer that it's hard to play it and not have a smile on your face. As previously mentioned, you take control of two Sonics, Classic and Modern. Classic Sonic is modelled around the nostalgic titles of the 90s, featuring his trademark spin dash and 2D thrills. You will almost feel right at home here. I say almost because due to the Hedgehog engine, the game engine previously developed and used for Sonic Unleashed, which is also being used for this game, Classic Sonic doesn't feel exactly the same as he did all those years ago. If you're an avid player of the classic titles, you may take an issue with this, and there may be a teething period as you adjust to the new engine. His momentum is different, the weight of his character is different, his character feels a bit stiff and bloated, rolling down a slope will gone and no speed, which is a bit disappointing if you're used to doing this in earlier games. To work around this though, Sonic Team made the spin dash unbelievably fast, and it's easy to do just by holding a button. You can get serious speed and airtime if you use the spin dash on a ramp, effectively skipping huge segments of a stage. However, not all stages are accommodating for this technique. A lot of the time, you will find yourself slamming into a wall and coming to a complete stop, which is especially the case in Crisis City and Planet Wisp. Platforming can be stiff, which can be an annoyance when placed in tricky life or death situations. I never felt like I didn't have full control of my character though, and if I died, I knew it was on me rather than the janky control. Once I got used to the physics, I found the platforming to be enjoyable. Bouncing on enemies feels great and helps you keep your momentum and reach higher parts of the stage that may be inaccessible otherwise. For comparison, I prefer the 2D stages here over anything found in Sonic 4 Episode 1, or Sonic Colors for that matter. Sonic 4's were far too janky, and Colors relied so much on slow platforming that it became monotonous. In Generations' case, I find it to be a perfect balance of high speed moments and joyous, slower paced platforming challenges that make you feel engaged. You won't be cursing at the horrible stages like in Sonic 4's case, or yawning yourself to sleep like in some segments in Colors. Instead, you'll be having a blast seeing stages reimagined to fit a classic playstyle. Classic Sonic also comes equipped with power-ups you can find throughout the stages. Classic fans will recognise these and will be delighted over their return. Power Sneakers, Invincibility, Extra Lives and Extra Rings. You might be thinking, is that it? As you realise a few staples are missing. Interestingly, Generations introduces a skill shop in which you can buy power-ups for both Classic and Modern Sonic. It's here you'll find the shield for Classic Sonic, as well as the elemental shields, the Fire, Lightning and the Water shield, returning from Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Equipping the shields gives you their unique abilities. They offer a different way of tackling a stage, such as bouncing in the case of the Water shield, or dashing through the air in the case of the Fire shield. The shop itself is a great way of upgrading your characters for that one stage you want to achieve the best time in. You can buy a skill that increases your spin dash for Classic Sonic, or a skill that extends your boost for Modern. There's a long list of skills that ultimately change the way you play the game, and they are all unlocked through the returning red rings. The red rings are implemented interestingly in Generations. Often they are placed on alternative, secret paths that may require multiple run-throughs of a stage before you realise that they're even there. They offer good replay value, and make you see the stage in a different light, and maybe because I like the stages more here than in colours, that I genuinely felt a desire to collect them all, as classic or modern Sonic. Now, moving on to modern Sonic's playstyle, the easy thing to do is to compare it to Sonic Unleashed, so if you've played that game, you'll know what you're getting yourself into. Bursting through the stages with the boost feature during the 3D segment, built with good platforming that provides challenges and alternative paths to the goal ring, equipped with sidestepping and drifting found in previous games, 3D Sonic handles well, and his simple arsenal is all you'll need to have a good time. Unlike Sonic Colors, where drifting was situational, here you can use it anytime you want as it helps build up your boost meter. Modern Sonic also comes equipped with his own 2D style gameplay, but these sections of a stage don't last that long, except for Planet Wisp, which is such a drag to play. He controls differently than classic Sonic, he feels lighter and easier to control. Modern Sonic can also perform wall jumps and slide under obstacles during his 2D segments, making them feel different and not just a rehash of classic Sonics. Modern Sonic stages are filled with iconography you've come to associate with 3D Sonic. Cool set pieces such as dangling off a helicopter, almost being eaten by a giant robot fish, or the insane recreation of Sonic Adventure 2's truck chase sequence. The set pieces provide a nice visual distraction if things ever start to feel a bit mundane, and they're done in short bursts to not take control away from the player for too long. Rail grinding and ziplining are nice additions that help spruce up a level, but they're a welcome change of pace. 3D Sonic in this game is my favourite 3D Sonic of the last decade, and potentially might be my favourite Sonic of all time. The way he controls is perfect, the sense of speed you feel is amazing, the platforming here is great, there's nothing I don't love about Sonic Generations 3D Sonic. This game sets the standard of what a Sonic game should be, and unfortunately, the series hasn't lived up to the bar it set itself with subsequent releases. The stages themselves are split into 3 different eras of Sonic's history. There's the Genesis era, featuring Green Hill, Chemical Plant, and Sky Sanctuary. The Dreamcast era, featuring Speed Highway, City Escape, and Seaside Hill. Wait, Seaside Hill? That's not Dreamcast. And the Modern era, featuring Crisis City, Rooftop Run, and Planet Wisp. Nearly all of them are perfect reimaginings of the iconic stages Sonic has traversed. I say nearly all of them because I'm not a fan of Planet Wisp, even though Sonic Colors released a year earlier and they could have used this opportunity to build upon what they already had. It somehow comes off worse than its original counterpart. While it may be gorgeous to look at, I find it drags on for far too long and is a slog to play. In terms of my favourite, it's hard to pick. Each stage is solid, they're all unbelievably high quality, something Sonic seems to be lacking these days. If I had to pick a favourite era, I'd go with the Dreamcast era. While there may be 2 city stages, they're the most iconic in Sonic's 3D career, and their updated redesigns and platforming challenges are a joy to play. I must give props to Crisis City from the modern era though, taking a stage as hated as the one in Sonic 06 and revamping it, fixing everything in the process shows how much Sonic Team cared. At the end of completing the stages in a set era, your progress in the story comes to a halt. It's here that the game introduces its challenge gates for you to complete, forcing you to complete at least one as classic Sonic or modern Sonic to unlock a boss fight. These side challenges are fun, there is a lot of diversity in different types of challenges the game throws at you, and the rewards for the completion are sweet. The challenges range from speed challenges, technique trials, doppelganger races, enemy challenges, item challenges, ring challenges, juggle challenges, rescue challenges, and my favourite, the cooperation challenges. That's a lot of stuff for you to do, but it's all rather simple. For example, the speed challenges require you to race through an obstacle course, and the doppelganger races are simply beating a clone to the end of the stage. But there is interesting stuff here like the juggling the goal ring as classic Sonic, or using specific items to help you navigate the stage. During the story, both Sonics rescue their iconic bunch of friends from being frozen in the white void. Upon saving them, their challenge gates become available, in which you can take advantage of their unique abilities to make your way to the goal ring. It's enjoyable seeing Sonic's pals not be relegated to a passive role, and instead get in on the action with their iconic personalities. Using Rouge to help defeat robots, or Espio helping you with his ninja hook, or having Tails fly you to the goal ring. By including them this way, Sonic Team manages to not make them feel intrusive into the main gameplay, but still gives them an opportunity to shine and stay relevant in the franchise. Opposite of these friend challenges are the character bosses, featuring Sonic's well-known rivals of Metal Sonic, Shadow and Silver. While the Metal Sonic fight may be a bit simplistic with its 2D gameplay of avoiding obstacles, Shadow and Silver's fights more than make up for it. Shadow's fight is the iconic Sonic v Shadow on the Space Colony arc, in which you have to race through space and collect a glowing orb to power up and smack Shadow down. The fight feels epic as the giant arc floats above you and the air is so far in the distance below you. Silver's fight is entirely new. You must chase Silver through Crisis City as he gathers scrap and nearby cars using a psychokinesis that he hurls at Sonic to try and take him down. It's a nice range of fights that challenge you through different means, taking advantage of each character's own unique abilities and personalities to create memorable moments that stand out against the rest of the game. The other boss fights are good too, featuring the Death Egg Robot, Perfect Chaos and the Egg Dragoon. The Death Egg Robot would have been a surprise if it didn't return in Sonic 4, but it's still a varied enough fight that it stands its ground against other versions of it. It's fascinating to me to see Sonic's progression and how he's become more powerful throughout the series, which is highlighted in these boss fights. For example, with Perfect Chaos, you no longer turn into Super Sonic like in Adventure 1 to take down this behemoth. Instead, you use the boost mechanic to scale his body and take him down. The other two mechanical fights are still decent, but I would have enjoyed different opponents that showcased more of how far Sonic has evolved since the early days. The final boss is so annoying though. I have no grasp on an actual strategy. I just hit the boost button and collect rings and pray I hit the time meter. Both Sonics turn into Super Sonic, which is cool, and the pair fly through the void towards the time meter to bash into it, but it can be quite difficult to gauge whether you're doing anything significant or not. You can't tell whether you're winning or losing, so it can feel like an exercise of patience when you're trying to whittle away its health. You can change between a 2D perspective and a 3D perspective, but I'm not sure if that's necessary to win the fight. I'm pretty sure you can stay in a 3D perspective the whole time and win that way, so it raises the question of what was the point of even designing it this way in the first place. It is a weak fight to be honest, but it's not the longest thing in the world, but it can feel like it goes on forever. There's one reason as to why this fight can be short, but also feel like it's gone on forever, and that's because of one annoying reason. All the other characters, so Sonic's friends, never shut up during this fight. They just spew random drivel towards the Sonics, shouting about whenever the enemy attacks, how time is affected, how good you're doing, or telling you to watch out. It doesn't seem offensive, however when you're actually playing it, they never shut up. It's probably the worst boss fight in the game, which is a shame as it's the big bad final boss. Jun Sonoe makes this anniversary title soundtrack spectacular through remaking and remixing various songs to make them fresh, more vibrant, and to give them a new identity that celebrates the series' evolution and musical style, but never making them too different to the point where they become unrecognisable. The soundtrack is joyous, and you can unlock additional pieces by completing challenge gates and chasing a giant musical note around. Once collected, you can return to a stage and pick any piece of music that you want to accompany you. Do you want to listen to Cityscape while in Green Hill Zone? Well, you can. It's one of the best features of the game, as it encourages replayability to find the best piece of music that matches the stage. By making different pieces of music unlockable via the challenge gates, it also encourages you to see everything and unlock everything the game has to offer. You can also unlock concept art through the challenge gates, but the music is so much better for me. Personally, using free on Speed Highway always fills me with a sense of freedom, like I'm truly bursting through a city at the speed of sound. Endless Possibility on Rooftop Run is also a nice combination you should try out as well as His World on Crisis City. Sonic Generations has become iconic in the franchise due to the respect it shows to not only the series, but to the fans, by giving them a high quality piece of software that doesn't feel rushed or half baked, except the story. It's a technical marvel for the Sonic franchise, and will leave you wishing the rest of the series could have had as much care poured into it like this game has. It's not only one of the best Sonic games, but it's a must play for any fan of 3D platformers, as you will never find a sense of speed alongside such well constructed levels in any other game. It's a shame that this game is so celebrated, and Sonic Team couldn't keep the celebrations going with future releases. It's truly a gem of the past 10 years, and deserves to be put on its pedestal that it rightly built. What did Sonic Team think that the next game after Sonic Generations could be? Well, remember Sonic 4 Episode 1, how it had the little Episode 1 in the title? Sonic Team weren't done with that franchise yet.